Hello, everybody. Hello,
Good morning, good afternoon,
or
whatever
good,
time it is.
or good evening, or good middle of the night. So here we are with Goddess Matters. Today we're with our esteemed guest, Dr. Odette Springer.
Hello, Dr. Annalisa and
So,
Dr. A.
and Dr. A, that's right, Dr. A
We're we're,
squared.
we're
Sorry,
A squared, A and A. We're A squared.
I took
A
your
squared.
line.
That's okay. It's the reality, right?
I know, I've
It's
repeated
a
it so many
scripted
times now
reality.
I can repeat it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just we're going to give a little bio for Dr. Odette before we get, off into the races. Dr. Odette Springer is a writer, independent film producer, and classically trained musician. And in her private practice, she works as an editor and a book coach. And I'll say outright that her full bio and any information on how to follow her will be in the YouTube text box. So we know that for sure. And today we've been kind of mulling over what we wanted to talk about. And Odette, you had contacted me recently and said that you wanted to respond to the CNN article that came out recently. Well, this will be airing on May 20th, so not so recently. From today's point of view, it is. And so you wanted to respond to that you had some stuff coming up, really as a question inside of yourself, where do we go from here? And this is touches kind of on your broader work. I think you could say that more broadly. This is a question that you have has been with you for a long time. So I'd love it if you could just start us off. Start us off from that point.
Okay, so all honesty, when I brought up the following night, I had a nightmare and I thought, oh my God, I can't talk about this topic. It's just too triggering. And as I let it just sit inside me, I started to remember the Navajo myth that I worked with for my dissertation. This myth where the Navajo principle is really about reciprocity, building equanimity, and restoring balance. And then today, when I was walking, thinking about what I was going to say, I remembered, my chair passed away, Paul Zolbrod, and he's the one who wrote the book that I'm going to be citing from.
And this is your dissertation chair.
My dissertation chair. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. And when he was at my defense, he told me when I finished that he was passing the baton on to me. And that's a very daunting, proposition because I'm American, I'm not Native American. So it's very scary to do that. But I felt like, oh yeah, this really is the framework. This is the framework that we can hold. We might not adhere to perfectly, but it's a framework. And I feel so honored that I'm able to read from his book. I'm going to read a passage from his book and share just a little bit about the myth. It's a very, very complicated myth. But the part that I want to stress is the part that addresses the relationship between men and women, because that's really what we're talking about with this site.
Yeah, with this,
And
and
so
I think I forgot to mention the name of the site. Can you give us a little context?
mothering, right? It's called mothering.com.
Motherless, right?
Oh, mother, yes.
Yeah.
Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Mothering, we need to mother remother the motherless. Yeah, motherless, which is just a fascinating name too for a site, a porn site. I mean, I'm just really curious what was in their heads when they came up with this, but that's an aside. Okay, so the story, yeah, the website is called Motherless, and I just lost my earring. Okay. So in the story, the Navajo creation myth is called, and their supreme goddess is Changing Woman. And she's recognized as she's the most respected and central to their myth. And she appears when the entire world's falling apart. So monsters take over, vegetation is gone, nobody can eat, everything's toxic, men and women are quarreling, monsters are taking over the world. The parallels between the myth and what's happening now are kind of astounding. Men and women are fighting each other. And the reason that this happened is because men devalued women. They disrespected them, they devalued them, they dishonored them, they didn't appreciate anything they did. So the women got fed up and they decided they were all going to leave and they were going to form like a female community. And so the men had their male community, and everything was kind of going hunky dory until after a while, the women started to have this kind of a longing for communion or touching, intimacy, but they didn't want the guys. They didn't wanted nothing to do with them. So they started to find objects to become intimate with. And some of them became pregnant from these objects. And that's what created monsters. So they gave birth to these monsters, and these were the monsters that now were destroying everything. And that's when Changing Woman comes in. So her role, she's brought in to restore balance. And the way that she's going to restore balance is through her children. So when she's all grown up, she sits either by a rock or by a lake. There's many versions, but she's outside and she gets impregnated by the sun in the sky, and she gives birth to these two boys, monster slayer and child born of water. So one is the more aggressive, one is the more fluid, and they're also said to represent not only male and female within the male energy, but also her male aspect, which is male and female. So the problem was that as soon as the sun impregnated her, he is gone. He abandons her, he goes back to the sky, and he's got families. I don't know how many wives, what he's doing up there. But anyway, he never comes back, ever comes back to see the children, see her, take care of her, nothing. She's totally abandoned. So she's left to raise the sons, to mentor them, to guide them, and to prepare them to go into battle and to destroy these monsters. So when they're ready, the last step of this is they have to go back to their dad. And because the son is the one who has the weapons to destroy the monsters. They have all the preparation, but they need the weapons. So they go to see the father. And once they get there, the father doesn't even know that they're his kids, they're earthly kids. And how could they be his children? So he puts them through all these trials as well. And they're prepared, totally prepared for this because Changing Woman prepared them. And with the whole community, Spider Woman, everybody prepares these kids. So he finally realizes, yeah, they're my kids. So he gives them weapons to take back. And this is where the problem starts. So we know. Out of the blue shows up one day on the same rock or in the same area and sits next to her. So there's like no apology, no remorse, not hello, nothing. He puts his arm around her and he tries to kiss her, and she pushes him away. Then he says, but I gave you the weapons to kill the monsters, so I deserve this. And she goes, but I didn't ask for the weapons. They're for the kids and they're for humanity. So he keeps mansplaining her and he goes, well, my son said I could have you. And he tries to kiss her and grab her again, and she pushes him away. And she says, they don't speak for me. I speak for myself. I'm not spoken for. So then he's got to change his tactics. And he goes, well, I miss you. I get lonely at night and I miss you. So then she starts to soften a little bit. And she goes, okay, well, I'll come back. But now she gives him a series of demands that he must meet. So she begins to negotiate. And negotiate is the term that I want to use because that's what actually saved the Navajos in the end, their power of persuasion and how to negotiate. So I think this is where I'm going to read. So yeah, just before that. So she says, but I hear you have a beautiful home in the East, I want such a home in the West. And then she says, well, I'll tell you why. And so now I'm going to read in the book. She goes, remember, I willingly let you and your rays into my body. Remember, I gave birth to your son, enduring pain to bring him into the world. Remember that I taught him to serve his people unselfishly so that he would willingly fight the alien monsters. Remember, as different, as dissimilar, as unlike each other as you and I are, there can be no harmony in the universe as long as there is no harmony between us. If there is to be such harmony, my requests must matter to you. My needs are important to me as yours are to you. My whims count as much as yours do. My response to your needs is to reflect the way you respond to mine. There is to be nothing less. So he thinks about this, and then he decides that she's right. And so he puts his arms around her again, and now they can get back together because he's realized that without her, there can't be any procreation. And she realizes the same thing because she doesn't reject him. She's rejecting what he's offering, but she's not rejecting him. And so this myth is to the Navajo, it's kind of in their DNA. So when they got conquered and they got thrown out of their land, they were offered Oklahoma or something to go back to, and they didn't want to go back to Oklahoma. And they're the only conquered tribe that was able to go back to their homeland. So that says something. And they used this myth to convince General Sherman to do it. And the power of persuasion that Changing Woman used with the sun is what they used with them.
Wow.
And I found that so incredible, this myth, that it had such power, and that, yeah, so they're back in their homeland. And I wanted to share that because I feel like one of the ways, now going back to now, is for us to be able to learn how to persuade. There's no anger in her tone. There's strength, there's boundaries, there's a lot of intelligence in the way she's presenting her argument.
Self-worth.
What? Her
Self-worth.
worth, her self-love, and her value.
She's also presenting it in a very logical way, which is
Exactly.
very masculine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, what I wanted to bring to this conversation for now. So, how do we restore balance? How do we restore balance within women and men? I mean, all of us have got to learn how to restore our wholeness in some way. And it's a rocky road. And, for them, I don't want to, this is not like I'm not painting this picture of this ideal society because, once they were conquered, also there's so much trauma in that society that their violence and rape and alcoholism went through the roof. And they couldn't deal with it at the time. I think when the trauma is so bad, you can't look at the trauma. But now they are looking at it. And now they are coming out of it. I think this younger generation is working, with the trauma that they all went through. So, but I just find this myth to be so beautiful. And yeah, anyway, so thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah. And so I'm like just putting some pieces together because as we've already discussed, like the name of this website is Motherless. And the way you told the story, Changing Woman appears because it's almost like the society is motherless. And so she appears kind of as the primordial
Exactly.
mother, right? So what's the wisdom there? If we're in a motherless society right now, and most of our leaders are also men, right? We don't really have any kind of in terms of the major international
Mm.
organizations, there's not a lot of, let's say, mothering leadership or people who represent that. Do you think that that myth might have or that sacred story? Because you've also told me that it's more than a myth. It's part of
It's
their
their history.
history.
It's considered their history. Yes, it's depending who you talk to. Yeah,
Right.
obviously,
Right.
but whatever it is, it's their meaning and it's their core value. They
So
live by this, whatever we want to call story. They live by the story.
So then how might we apply that in a response then to this motherless world we're living in, represented by this motherless society? Do we need to then call on some kind of changing woman-like figure to remother us?
It's interesting because I think there's some direct parallels, some ways to what's going on because you see so many women being so angry and saying, we are done. We want to go live in communities with women,
Right.
older women retiring together without men, women saying we want matriarchal communities. We
And we've
want
been saying this for a long time, way before the motherless.
Yes, yes, but even now,
Mhm.
right, with so many young people, men and women, young men and women saying, they're not sure they want to have children, that things are so crazy, and so we're seeing this whole thing of women saying, we don't want to date this kind of man. The manosphere saying, oh my God, these women are awful, and so we see this really big
Exactly.
vision happening. So I see that we're in the very beginning part of the myth, right? We're in that beginning part of the myth. I
I'm
think
getting the chills listening to you say it
yeah,
because that's true. That's exactly what's happening.
the only thing I have a little trouble with, and I don't know the DNA mythology that well, although I did study with Paul for one
Oh, you
semester,
did.
is that the idea that once again women bring evil into the world through their fallen sexual practices. That's it's a little hard and that ultimately is why Changing Woman returns to to promote balance, to get rid of the monsters.
That
I
that's
totally agree. Yes, go ahead.
That's a trope that we see like
Yeah.
across mythologies too. That's in Mesopotamian mythology, that's in Jewish with, the Hebrew Lilith. I know there's a Greek version of that as well. So this is a common trope of the women creating monsters when they don't incorporate the masculine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally agree with you. And I had brought that up to Paul, and he couldn't explain that to me. And of course, Paul was also of a different generation, and
Yeah.
but I totally have a problem with that. And at the same time, assuming we just say, okay, the solution came from the woman,
Right.
and the problem was that they were disrespected.
Yeah.
So they were dishonored. They were sick and tired of this stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, the story could have gone the other way. I mean, that the men had the baby, but men can't carry the baby, maybe because
Yeah.
men can't get pregnant. You know, I'm not sure what the thinking is behind it, but it did bring that up for me as well.
It's interesting to think about it, like in the sense of it being, patriarchal in that sense, but thinking about rage, thinking about anger, thinking about these big transformative feelings and emotions that women are feeling from this disrespect, from this anger, and do those emotions give birth to some kind of monstrous thought forms? Or I mean, I don't know, I'm riffing here, I'm just trying to think in
Yeah.
terms of the myth, and then the idea of coming together and having to, in a sense, say no, there needs to be equality between our give and take, right? I'll only give you as much as you'll give me, you'll only give me as much as I'll give you,
Or
right?
complementary, isn't it? I mean, I think I like this.
Complementarity, yeah.
Yeah, I like this word that Heidi Gottner Abendroth uses, complementarism, something like that. But because
Um,
that's how she sees like matriarchal societies originally, so that the word equal is not, because that's implied, but it's not the same. It's like, these are how we complement one another with our gifts and our strengths and what we
And they're all
provide.
equally honored, they're
Right,
right.
complementary, but they're not exactly the same, right?
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're not the same at all, actually,
Yeah.
because it reminded me of that TikTok little short that you showed me about marriage, where he was saying that traditionally the man goes to work, right? And he feels he's sacrificing,
Oh, right. That's how a lot of
right?
men are feeling right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that he's sacrificing to go to work. So the woman should be sacrificing her body. I mean, the least he could do is be coming home to a woman who wants to have sex with him. And when I was walking, I was thinking about that. I thought, okay, well, I understand like from his point of view, but it's the framework that's wrong. So let's talk about what the woman does when she's home. Does she clean? Let's just say she stays home, cleans, cooks, takes care of the children and all of
It's
that.
all the unpaid labor,
Right.
right?
So what is
Right.
that worth? What is that valued?
Makes all the
Yeah.
appointments. I
Right,
mean,
exactly. What's the value of that? So what gives him the right to
Yeah.
think that he's owed this?
I
right.
wish there was a TikTok. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but somebody sent me this, and it was of he's a cultural commentator, a young black man, and he was commentating on the fact that men feel like they're sacrificing, right? He says, I don't understand this. He goes,
Yeah.
when men are single and they're living, they get up and they go to work and they support themselves and they pay for everything they need to live, and they do all these things, and they do what they need to do, and women do what they need to do, and then somehow all of a sudden when they get married and they have a family, somehow that same thing that they were doing before, which was going to work and taking care of what they needed to take care of, right? So now this is a sacrifice. He said it doesn't hold up. The
Right.
logic doesn't hold up.
Right. And then that's applied to women too, it within that narrow worldview that, oh, women are just going to cook for themselves and clean for themselves and do it all for themselves anyway. So why should it be a big deal to then extend that to their partners when they're probably also working and tending to the kids and whatever else they're doing?
Right.
Yeah. So that brings me back to the myth
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
both people need to see their value, the
Right.
value of the other.
Right.
And probably what's happening is men are probably feeling unimportant with no value whatsoever. What value can they bring? Women can take care of themselves, they can work, they can inseminate themselves, they don't even need it, to be married. So they don't really need the men. So what are men for? And probably, I mean, I don't know, like if there's a backlash to, women being more empowered and they just feel like they have no value whatsoever and this is their way of doing it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there was a really popular post on Substack, and I was just reading part of it again today, and I don't remember the writer's name. I'm sorry, but she was writing about what it means when the world is motherless, and it went viral, right?
Right.
And then she came out with a second one,
I
though,
read that.
the
Yeah.
answer to it, about our world is also fatherless, and what has happened in the disappearance of the honorable male, right? That fills the honorable sacred energy within the male female relationship, right? And I just was reading that today, which I thought was really interesting as well. So there's so much disconnect in the communication, in the understanding, and I think it goes back to, and because people are going to be so sick of talking about this, but I think we can't let it go. I think we have to find a way to transform it. Is that patriarchy has harmed everyone, right? That this whole system is set up to tell men to not honor their feelings, to not honor their emotions, to not think about their inner lives, their sacred selves, any of these things, and that this disconnect because of patriarchal values, which essentially view men as human and women as other, and that the whole system is set up to support men. I don't know how we're going to get through this. It's going to be messy, and we got to figure it out.
Well, that's interesting because when I wrote my dissertation, Jerome Bernstein was my internal reader, and he was a psychoanalyst. He worked on the reservation for 40 years or 50 years, so he knew all of them well. And when I wrote about the patriarchy in the film business, he corrected me every time. And he said it's toxic patriarchy, not patriarchy, that we need patriarchy. Just because patriarchy is for men, the pater, and matriarchy is for women, it's what has happened to the patriarchy. And that he said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, just, get out the dirt. And I think I've always thought about that because we toss around the word patriarchy as being horrible because it's what we know it to be.
Yeah. Well,
You
it's
know,
really, I mean, it's a really old baby. If you're talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, when you talk about the destruction of and subversion of goddess worship, goddess temples, the
right.
divine feminine, I mean, how that being one of the fundamental principles of its formation, how you redeem that, I would love to have that conversation.
I know, and he's passed away because I wanted to actually have that with him. But I think what he's talking about is that there is a need for men to have their own archy, right? There's a need for men to have I don't think men want to be under the umbrella of a female name, even though we know that matriarchy includes men and means equality for men. It means cooperation. It means complementarian.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
means all those things, but the root of the word is mother. So then it leaves them kind of, well, what's the root of their gender, And so, I mean, I don't know how it's done at all, Andrea, and I completely agree with you, but I feel like we need to restore a patriarchy and a matriarchy that are in balance and that are in communication with each other and in reciprocity with each other.
Well,
How that's done, or if it's even possible, that's a whole
I
other.
mean, Ryan Eisler used that term, the partnership, society. And she looked at the old matriarchal societies and she may have seen them as matrilineal and matriarchal, but she used the word partnership. And then she also said, this is the word that we can use moving forward. I think for those reasons. But also, it's interesting in saying that men that might not feel or might feel however they feel when we use the term matriarchy and that they prefer patriarchy because we're talking about mother and the need for the mother,
Well,
right?
but that goes to show you, yes, yes,
And
they
so it's
need
almost like we
another.
actually need some of these matriarchal, I don't even care if we call it matriarchy at this point, but we need the principles and the values and the social structures of that system that are mothering at their base, obviously, to help bring us back into balance.
Well, mothers mother boys and their sons and their daughters,
Yeah. It's
obviously.
interesting because this all gets into linguistics, which is such a complex subject matter, right? But I remember, looking at matriarchy, patriarchy. So then I think and express, that what we need to find is a balance in all humans, men and women,
Right,
between the archetypal feminine and archetypal masculine
right.
in those energies and how they work together. But then I was giving a talk on a website having to do with this subject matter, and the younger people who were feeding back were like, well, we don't even like those words. We don't like archetypal feminine and archetypal masculine. We don't even like masculine and feminine. And I'm like, well, then you're the next generation. Come up with some kind of terminology that we can talk about this. Because if matriarchal is triggering, if patriarchal is triggering, if feminine is triggering, if masculine is triggering, if gender is triggering, we have to find a way to talk about this without mistaking the finger for the moon. I mean,
Well, yeah, the partnership one sounds interesting to me.
yeah.
Being in partnership.
Yeah, because it's a non-gendered term, and I think that, even in the secular world, right? Like we can talk about that's a business term, right? Like we all know that in terms of business, and even many of our romantic relationships are now considered partnerships. So I think we can all kind of rally behind that term at the very least. Even
Mhm.
though matriarchy does describe a certain kind of way of structuring society and structuring from a certain set of values of nurturing and reciprocity and egalitarianism in the truest sense. But again, I would be okay foregoing that term. I wanted to say something about, oh God, it flew away already. Darn it. Okay, someone else jump in. It was about the second half of the story, and no, I can't retrieve it. I should have wrote it down. So,
Okay, well, it'll come to you. Let me know.
yeah, it will. So, okay, so what going back to what Andrea said, like we're at the beginning of this myth where there's
Mhm.
an increasing divide. So at what point in the story does changing woman come in? Is it because they're calling out for her? Is it because she sees that there's a need?
No, she's just, her birth is mysterious. So one day there's something that they see up on a mountain and they don't know what it is. And they go up and they don't know what she is either. So her birth is totally mysterious. They don't know where she came from.
It's
So
like the Virgin
she just
Mary
appears.
apparitions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she just appears in the myth. Actually, Paul wrote a second book that I can't wait to read, I think comparing Genesis to the Dine Bahane, where are the similarities.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that book. So yeah, I don't know where she appeared from, but she just came when it was all going to end.
When all the fighting was going to end.
No, when the world was going to end, when there would be no world because there could be no procreation, because the men and women were not going to come together.
Is that what's going to happen here?
Well, I'm
We're
saying
gonna
it's an interesting parallel, don't you think? I mean, we're
Yes.
really at a like a
Well, I mean, you look at what's going on with climate science and the recent things that have come out about the collapse of ocean current systems and
yeah.
different things that are happening and where we are on the global temperatures, how high has the fever gotten, Yeah, I don't think most people have any idea based on just where we are now on the temperature scale how much change and upheaval there's going to be in the next 50 to 75 years in global climate. I mean, even if we stayed right here, if we didn't get any warmer,
Right.
which what do you think the chances of that are?
Right.
And
So,
things are just wonky. Like we have mosquitoes in the winter, and like my cats have fleas in the wintertime, and they never do. They always have it in the summer. It's just too warm in the winter, and yeah, and it's not going to rain that much this year. So
So even the mother within which we live on and we receive our nourishment is leaving us in a sense. We need her to,
help
her.
we can. I mean, we're not coalescing around, what she needs.
So then what?
And
So
that's the other thing that Jerome was telling me, which is so sad because we have a lot of science that could probably help us. But he was talking about the Western this or that mentality, right? It's good or evil, this or that. Whereas the indigenous psyche is, he would call it reciprocity. So it's living in connection, reciprocal with nature. And they, for instance, they don't think about plugging in a cord into the wall to get electricity because they are the electricity. Do you know what
Mm.
I mean? It's just there's only one. And he was saying, well, yeah, but don't throw again the baby out with the bathwater. We need all of this advancement in science, but we also need the other. And I think, again, that would be the ideal, right? If there were reciprocity between these two modalities, between science and between nature. And that's not happening so much either, but that probably
is honoring this other way as well as
honoring
our
the
way.
other way. It's always this division. Like,
Mm.
I know so many, and I'm guilty of this, not so much anymore, but this holistic way of living,
Mhm.
so you won't ever go to a doctor for anything. You won't ever do anything like that. And then they will never do an herb or they will never believe in anything either. And well, what if there's a time when you have to go to the hospital and you break a leg? You need that. And then you need the medicine there. And then how do you heal? Maybe you use some alternative medicine to heal from your broken leg. So it's always the division. And we're not divided as humans and we're not divided from our environment. So I think that is also a big part of the problem.
Is the this or that mentality.
Yeah.
well, I think it also goes to the heart of the fact that the economic structure that supports patriarchy is capitalism, right?
Well, but Elizabeth Warren was a capitalist, and I don't feel that she was, I feel like that she would have been able to, I don't know if she would have succeeded, but she did have the Consumer Protection Bureau and, to watch over these corporations, and she wanted to break up those big corporations. So I don't know if it's capitalism or the way that we are using capitalism or abusing capitalism.
Well, because I mean, as it stands right now in corporate capitalism, right? And industrial capitalism, the overstripping of resources, I don't know, I just go back to the thinking of when we studied, Marija Gimbutas and all the early archaeologists and sociologists and mythologists looking at, early human culture, when women created pottery and weaving and agriculture and animal husbandry, and then all of a sudden there was more, there was excess, there was commodities, right? And so it went from community to having excess, and when you had excess, then it became having the buying and the selling, right? And then cities, villages became cities, villages became, nations, tribes, whatever, cities, countries, right? And so I think you're right in some ways. I think it's the way capitalism is used, right? But that whole idea of I have more and I'm going to sell it, or I have this and I'm going to sell it, and I have a right to sell it at whatever price point I want to sell it at, and I have a right to make as much profit as I want. And it doesn't matter, where they're little children in Africa, mining the things in holes that they need for cell phones.
I mean,
We're
it's
on Zoom.
yeah, and it's like it predates capitalism anyway. It was feudalism and monarchies and all of those are just I would qualify them as all different outgrowths, economic systems within the patriarchal umbrella.
Yeah.
But I think what you were speaking to, Andrea, with I have the right to, that also brings us back to where we started, which is like the men participating in this sexual violent behavior toward their partners, which itself is just shocking that although caveat to that, we know that most intimate part or most violence against women is done by, their intimate partner or a family member anyway. So shocking, not shocking. But having spoken to some men myself about this over the years, question of what my question is always, why do men hate women? And they remind me it's not hate, that it's that they've learned how to disrespect women. Like they grow up not respecting women and not seeing them as their equals. And so I think there's something in the mentality within which all of us are raised, but men specifically in this case, as having a right to have free access to their wives' bodies because somehow in their brains, their wife is a resource for their own use. To be the mommy, to be the cook, to be the secretary, to be the, sex
The
dispenser.
housekeeper,
Yeah, the
the
house,
chauffeur,
what
the
all the whatever.
nurse.
The blow up doll, yes. I'm going to admit it. This is one of the reasons I haven't been in a relationship for 15 years because I was a lot of those things in my last relationship. And I was like, screw this. I'm not going to do this. I don't want to play all those roles. This is not fun. So have been very turned off from dating. I think it's a learned behavior and a learned belief system. So I think that we can create something different. I don't believe it's human nature per se, but I think it is that mentality that fuels men's behavior in that direction, that fuels all of our behavior in that capitalistic, in the way that we use capitalism, which is very different than what you're describing with these indigenous communities, as I understand them, as being reciprocity, and not just with each other, but with the environment, with all of their relations, the whole entire cosmos. And when you see the ant as your relative, there's no reason to, intentionally smash it.
Right. What I think is really interesting is looking at some of the Scandinavian countries and the Northern European countries that, granted, they're small countries, right, compared to the size of the US, but that have developed systems of government and community systems that are based on a completely different value system, right? In the health and well-being of all of the members of their society, right? Where they're actually closing prisons because there's nobody being sent to prison, right? Where they're, healthcare, mental health, all these things, right? Where they only work so many hours a week, they get whatever it is that they get, their healthcare is taken care of. And yet, even though they pay more taxes or whatever, right? The time spent with family, it's not a utopia, but it's a very different system that's set up on a very different set of values.
I totally agree. And I think that's the issue, is that it's not men and women, how women were taught to be with men. The system is toxic. And it's unsustainable.
It's interesting. Annalise and I have talked a couple of times about this, is that looking at the rise and return, excuse me, of the sacred feminine or the archetypal feminine energy and culture, seeing everything that went on through, from 1900 to now, the women's spirituality movement, the women's goddess movement, the matriarchal movement, all these movements, and everybody's saying, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? Smash the patriarchy now, do this now, do that now. And my thinking is that by having these discussions and trying to figure out what's next or how to move forward, we start to really build a very strong foundation as women to figuring out how to move forward. And that in fact, we won't live to see the solution, right? That if we don't have these conversations and we don't actually try to start moving the needle, political consciousness, national consciousness, whatever we want to think of it as, right? That nothing will change, right? And so, and it's just so, I mean, to be living through the second Trump administration is just like, I mean, if somebody had written this as a screenplay 20 years ago,
and you wouldn't believe
it would have gotten laughed out of the studio meeting, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next presidential election, the erosion of principles of the Constitution, where we're going to end up. Some people are like, no, we're heading right into the Handmaid's Tale, right?
The Voting Rights Act, now, and yeah. As I'm listening to you talk, I'm wondering, from the way you're explaining this, I'm wondering if one of the things that needs to happen is for women to embrace more of their masculine side, the positive masculine side, not the sexism masculine. We have that other side too, but in order to learn to negotiate better, in order to learn to express ourselves better without the vitriol, without the smash the patriarchy stuff, because all that does is it fuels flame on the problem.
Fuels the fire, yeah.
Yeah, and keeps and it builds the walls against one another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is it? I mean, I know for me that I'm always saying, I'm longing for the goddess, and I'm realizing I'm also needing the masculine, but a healthy masculine.
Yeah.
Because that's how we become more eloquent, more able to defend ourselves, more able to speak up. Sometimes, yeah.
Maybe find our worth and our value. I think that also is there's some kind of healthy masculine trait that understands intrinsic value in a way that, yeah.
Well, that values not only women, but values children.
I mean, if we're really all one, if that's true, then we really have to look at, what's happening to the one?
Yeah.
Because the one's not over there.
Yeah.
Well,
it's impossible, right? It's impossible for the one to be somewhere else.
So what do you think the actual wisdom from this story is for us right now in this moment?
Well, what I was saying to you actually about integrating East and West, about integrating the two sides, integrating the yin and the yang, the masculine, and learning to use it.
Yeah, between male alienation and female anger, we have to come together to address those issues, to want to address them. Right.
And I don't know how many of these men, like on the motherless side, are unreachable, probably a certain amount, but probably not all.
You mean in terms of proposing that to them?
I'm saying in terms of being able to proposing that, presenting and understanding where their perspective comes from, understanding where our perspective comes from, and that their perspective is really, they misunderstood the whole thing, and that's what I get from her. From what she said, I think that dialogue is, I don't know, this is such an old story. The fact that when I read it again the other day, I go, oh my gosh, yeah, the world is just turning to shit and the monsters are taking over. Well, yeah, that's what we've got.
But it's a woman, it's maybe, let's say, the archetype of the feminine, the primordial mother, that it's through her own understanding her own worth and creating those boundaries, as you said, and all those other qualities that the masculine was able to rise.
Right.
The son in this case, right? And show up in that complementary way in the positive masculinity or positive patriarchy, whatever we want to call it. Yeah. So I guess in this moment, what I'm seeing is that it's all of us, it's upon all of us right now to cultivate that healthy feminine within us to help arise the positive masculine as well.
It has to want to get in and fix it.
It's going to be, who knows how long it's going to take, thousands of years, I don't know. Who knows, right? With that we have to put aside because
Yeah,
it,
I don't
but
know. Yeah.
it
Well,
starts with
the
having
unfortunate thing is,
conversations.
is because of climate change, we don't have thousands of years. That's
Right.
the thing.
And if we addressed climate change and we understood why we have climate change, I mean, some of it is probably evolution and some, but most of it's man-made. Understand what we're doing to our own nature. They're just connected. The more that we live in alignment with nature, the more we're going to understand our own and see that there's a correlation there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because, it's the only thing around. Everything else is the black void, right? So I don't know. I think that the connection to nature is key, and realizing that we are a part of the natural world. We're not above it. We don't have dominion over it. We're not supposed to take advantage of it and pollute it, and that in order for humanity to survive, right? That lesson has to come really quickly.
Well,
Exactly.
maybe that's the starting place. Maybe that's easier somehow than starting with each other, where there's like, what did you say, Andrea? Female rage,
And male alienation.
alienation.
Yeah.
Maybe the place is through this third mediated party that's neither, that contains both the male and female, but somehow, like the way we relate to our pets, for example, like maybe understanding through nature in that
Well,
way.
maybe changing woman is Mother Earth. Maybe that's the focus, right? Maybe that we can't survive without it. And then on the other hand, you have Larry Ellison and all these AI people talking about, future communities that are all run by AI, but that you live your whole life there and there's no travel and there's no
The
this,
smart
and
cities. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all contained, and the ultra wealthy and the billionaires are going to live in the brilliant places, and
They'll
have all
eat
the
the
good
real meat while we're
they'll have
eating
all
like
the good
synthetic
food, and
food.
the rest of
Soylent
us,
Green, right?
Yeah.
yeah, the rest of us are going to have the wafers made from insects. I mean, I don't, I mean, this is really dystopian. It could go very, very dystopian, right?
Right.
So the question is like, how do we lay the foundation, or get to the tipping point, right?
Well, it's funny.
Of
I'm thinking
consciousness, right?
about how in New York City Zoran Mandani got elected by building small community a little bit more, a little bit bigger. And I think, I mean, I try personally. So, I mean, my feeling is that as we nurture these things within ourselves and attract people that want to nurture that, and we start building that, I think that's a lot more powerful than Larry Ellison, even though right now it looks like he's much more powerful.
Yeah, it's really going to
Obviously, he's
start.
taking over. He's taking over all the media. So obviously, it looks like they're going to control everything. But what's bigger is nature. Nature is they're nothing compared to the earth. Their power is nothing compared to what the earth can do. Hurricanes and floods and
Yeah.
fires and all kinds of stuff that she can conjure up. So I feel that if we don't focus on that, don't they say would you focus on whatever you
Oh,
resist?
expands. Yeah. What do we
Persists,
resist? Resist.
So
Yeah.
just like us focusing on this, what you're doing with your channel and focusing on this and talking to other people about it. And if there's action to be taken, but also action within ourselves. I know for myself, like by learning to express myself better, I can be more clear. I can bring things forth into the world, which is, far more masculine than feminine. So I can get my point across.
Yeah, I think that's true. I really think that with these next two elections, at least in the States, we're at a big turning point as to whether or not
Yeah.
the people are going to take back the government and have the government work to help create sustainable equanimity and opportunity in a way that's sustainable, right? I know that if everybody, if the world doesn't come together to deal with and I hate to keep going back to the climate thing, but basically we're giving the earth the flu, right? We're giving the earth a fever. And if climate change wipes out humankind, the earth will be just fine.
I know. That's
Yeah.
the thing. The earth is going to be fine.
I don't feel confident in the governmental systems to do enough. So my view is smaller grassroots efforts, and that whoever survives, whatever's going to come at us, will be able to survive because of the strength of these smaller communities and these networks that we create together, where we're living more off the land, where we're in reciprocal relationships. Oh, you're going to sow this, so you're going to grow that. And where we're really just enjoying what it means to be human, alive in this body. We're enjoying the sunsets, the butterflies. Like, like I think that's what will help us into the future, regardless of all this other stuff that we can't control. Because I will tell you, I attended the TED conference in 2017 as a vendor. And so I was privy to all of the conversations happening all around me, from financiers to different technological people that somebody debuted the, like, what is that called? The suit, the human body suit that levitated him off the ground. I forget what that's called, the Iron Man suit. Like they were playing with that technology there. And what I heard and saw people saying, Richard Branson was there, the Vice President Al Gore, I realized coming out of that, like, oh my God, we're screwed because everything is happening up here by people with money and technology, and the rest of the world, whether we want to or not, is going to be driven along this track with them. And we don't have a choice in that matter. So all we can do is our sacred work, whatever that is, and do our best every day to make a difference to the people in our lives and in our communities, and hopefully allow that to be the snowball that grows. Because there's this big monster machine, and most people aren't going to be able to take it down. So each of us does what we can. That was my takeaway from that moment.
Well, maybe from the Dine myth, maybe there's something in the sacred masculine that's going to take up the weapon, whatever that is, to kill the monster. That's interesting.
Right. And it was interesting because she created these two sons out of her creative power. So it's the creative feminine, and the masculine itself that she created was male and female, the warrior and the child of water. So she created the two men who are her inner masculine to save the world. So yes.
Interesting.
And it's violent. It was very violent. I mean, we're not talking about, a kumbaya thing. We're talking about weapons to destroy.
That's interesting. Well,
Time will tell, ladies.
yeah, time will tell. That's an interesting cliffhanger that you two just
Time will
brought
tell.
forth.
I'm going to go plant my garden this weekend. There you
Yeah.
go.
Helping the bees and the butterflies.
It's like very meditative. So I'm weeding all the roots out and I'm thinking I'm getting all the weeds out. And then, the next year the weeds come back. And even when you get all the roots out, the seeds fly around
Yep.
and they reseed.
Yeah.
And there's so much to learn from gardening because if you look at it, we can't get rid of all of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
We can plant a lot of, like you're saying, Anna, we can plant beautiful things and, there'll still be weeds.
And we need the weeds, don't we? That's
What
part of
does
the
it they say about
biodiversity.
weeds? A weed is just a plant growing in the place you don't want it.
Right,
Or
exactly.
nature abhors a vacuum or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a really interesting discussion. I wasn't sure where it was going to go. It did
Well,
go in a direction differently than I thought it would go, but I enjoyed it. So
me too.
I'm glad we took it that way. And so my last question is for you, Odette. Do you have any parting words of wisdom from the myth or from Paul or from yourself or that wants to come forth from your being? Any parting words?
I would just say that I feel that this myth offers beautiful images of what's possible. And so we know the power of myth. And so hopefully there are more stories that can come out with this idea of reciprocity and communion.
I love
I mean,
that.
I don't really have words of wisdom, but I think that the more we flood the airwaves and flood our lives with beauty, and I didn't talk about this, but on their way back from the long walk, they were talking about how they walk in beauty. I mean, and that she wanted beautiful things. She wanted turquoise and gems and all that stuff, and just surround ourselves with what we feel is beautiful. It's not like what other people think is beautiful, but what we feel is beautiful. And energetically, maybe that grows. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that myth. It's a beautiful one.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
And for sharing the last little pieces of the myth too about beauty. All right, everybody at home, thank you so much for being here with us today. And hopefully myself or Andrea, not me, I'll be in France. Andrea will be in the live chat with you. And please like this video, please comment, please share it with like-minded folk. Let us know what you think. There were a lot of things we did not get to, we know that, within this very big conversation topic. So let us know. Let us know your thoughts. And I think next week, I'll be in France live streaming, so we'll see you from France.
Woot woot.
Yes,
Yeah.
woot woot. All right, thank you so much, and thank you both. Bye.
Bye.